In this lesson, we'll continue on with the geometry for the back end of the car. Alright, so there are a few things that we need to do before we start to cut anything out. One thing that I want to do, I want to have a certain sharpness to the taillight area. And so I want to actually make this the bottom of the taillight. And right now, if you can see, it's actually below. So what I want to do is actually move all of that geometry up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just select those points. And I'll go ahead and just move those up. And I'll move it up to kind of where that seam is. I'll go ahead and select that row right below there. And let's kind of move it in and move it up to the bottom of that line there. Okay. We'll go ahead and go into our perspective here. And so you can see, I'll go ahead and pull this out just a little bit. I want to maintain kind of a nice smooth curve there, a smooth surface there. And kind of move that in. And so now we can actually use that as our tail light. All right. Another thing that we'll want to do before we cut this out will be to add some resolution right along the side. Because looking at this, if we cut this right along here, right now it's being smoothed between here and here and here, and it creates a nice curve, right? So if we cut this at this point, we now no longer have this point to smooth to. So it's going to be smoothing from here to here. It's going to actually flatten that out quite a bit. Okay, it's going to take away that curve. So what we need to do is add a little bit of extra resolution in there, which we can certainly do by using cut. And I'm going to just come from basically right here. Just come down kind of maybe a third of the way from the bottom there. And go ahead and cut across there. And then to maintain quads, sometimes I'll come in from the base here of this triangle and come in and add a line like that. Okay? And then we can come in and complete those. So let's go ahead and take this across here. And this as well. And then we can use these edges and just kind of pull those out. So we're just kind of refining and creating that curve that we're losing when we go ahead and cut that. Okay. And then we can go ahead and take that vertex and just kind of space it out. So it gives the effect of turning that geometry this way, which is fine for what we need. All right. And so now we want to go ahead and pull that across, and that'll also help to sharpen up this a little bit, although it was going to do it a little bit more than what we want. So go ahead and choose our ring, and let's go ahead and just connect. And we'll go down to Edit Edges, Connect, add a couple in there. We'll say OK. And now using Cut, we can come in and connect those up. So we'll get something like that, and something like that. Now we need to go back in and modify this a little bit to match up with what we've got here. All right, so we'll go and pull these out to give us something more like that. All right. Okay, so now we can actually, I think, begin to start cutting these things out. So I'm going to go ahead and just trash my mesh smooth there for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and select all these faces here, and I'm going to actually select these as well now. And I'm just going to detach these. Right, so we'll go down to detach. I'm going to detach it, and we can call it taillight. You can add a name in here if you want when you detach it. You can see how that's now detached. So that's going to be our taillight. Okay. Now for the trunk, we want to actually cut it out kind of right along here. So we can take these polygons here, basically all of these guys right in here all the way down to this point. And just make sure that that's where we want it. And yes, it is. So now we can go ahead and now detach this part. Then we can call this the trunk. Okay, so we now have several pieces. We've got this body, we've got the trunk, and then the tail light. Now if you take a look at this, it's kind of hard to see, but this is actually inset a little bit, this trunk. So what we can do is take these polygons. So take all of these guys here and just move them in just a little bit. Okay. And let's go ahead and take these guys, and we want to straighten it out just a little. Okay, and that may be a little bit too much, so we can pull that out a little bit if we want to. All right, now we want to have this be nice and sharp here where this line is. Right now, if we go ahead and smooth this tail light, go ahead and go down to subdivision surface. If we smooth that, it looks all right, but let's try this one. You can see that we're getting a very soft curve in here. So let's go ahead and add an extra line. Okay, go ahead and add an extra line right up in here. So we'll come down to our edge selection, choose the ring, and then connect. Okay, and we'll just do one, and let's drag it over to that side. Okay, so that'll serve to make that a bit tighter around this guy. Now for this, we want to actually kind of cut this into sections. So we've got three different sections here. So let's go to the back view. You can see how we've got those sections. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick slice, okay, right here, and I'll just slice right across there. Click on that. Slice right across there. Click on that, and you can get rid of this if you want to. I'll go ahead and just leave it there. Okay. And now if we go ahead and select those polygons, we go ahead and just get out of that tool. If we select these polygons, we can now come in and extrude those out. Right, so we'll come down and you can also, besides using extrude, if you wanted to use bevel, you could do that. That'll give you a couple of different options. So you could change the height right there, and also the outline amount. So if you wanted to give it a little bit of a, scale it down a bit, you could do that. Okay, so I'll do something like that. I don't want to scale that down too much. Apply. And then we can go in and do the same thing over here. Apply that. And then go ahead and click on these. And you can see how that, since we have that open, it just applies it to whatever selection that we have. Okay. And then I'll give us something like that. We can go ahead and effect pivot, center pivot. And then if we want to move that back inside there, we still need to add some thickness. Let me go ahead and add just a quick color here. See how that's starting to come together. We still need to add some thickness, but we've got everything sort of cut apart the way that we need to, right? So you may need to also come in and just shape this a little bit more. Just taking some of these edges and just moving those just a little. If you're not getting the kind of the curve that you want there. Okay. Kind of bring that back in. Right, so you want it to kind of blend together nicely. All right. So now that we've got that cut apart, you can see we've added that topology and kind of cut everything apart back here. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and just finish out this area with the taillights and the trunk itself. And then we'll move around to the side and start adding some detail on the side of the car. All right, so we'll go ahead and just continue on. It's kind of starting to come together. We've got some pieces on the front and on the back, and kind of slowly but surely taking shape here as we come through and using a lot of the same techniques. We're using connect a lot, we're using cut a lot, but you'll find your own sort of workflow that you like to use. A lot of times you'll just find a couple of tools that you really like and stick with those. So, but over the course of the training, we'll look at some different methodologies for creating some of these different pieces. So let's go ahead and jump right in, finishing up this guy, and then we'll move up to the side, starting in the next lesson.